I walked into the kitchen and saw my dinnerware thrown in the trash. My daughter-in-law said, "Mother-in-law, it was old, I bought new things." I looked at her calmly and replied, "Well, you can use them in your new house because you're not staying here anymore." It was time to remind her who pays the bills around here. I know what you're thinking. Sounds harsh, right? A mother-in-law kicking her daughter-in-law out, but let me tell you what really happened that Tuesday morning. After 8 long months of holding everything in, I finally snapped. It was 7 in the morning. If you're watching this on Stories of Mom Donna, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Let me rewind to how this whole ridiculous mess kicked off. I, Eleanor Whitlock, 68 years old, had just woken up in my own home. Well, technically my home, because it hadn't felt like mine in a long time. I went downstairs like every morning, wearing my fluffy slippers squeaking against the ceramic floor. I was thinking about making myself a cinnamon coffee, the kind I enjoy while watching the sunrise from the kitchen window, my little moment of peace before the daily chaos. But as I pushed the kitchen door open, something was off. The trash can was open, and through that narrow space, barely breathing, I saw it. My dinnerware. Not just any dinnerware. My blue porcelain set with gold edges, the one my husband Frank gave me on our wedding day 45 years ago. The set we used to celebrate Daniel's first birthday, my son. The set we used the last Christmas we spent with my parents before they passed. The one with a little chip on a plate because Frank dropped it while washing dishes and promised he'd never break anything of mine again. I never fixed it. That chip was part of our story. And now it was in the trash. Buried under eggshells and dirty napkins, I picked up a plate with trembling hands. My heart pounded so hard I felt it in my temples. How did it get there? Who dared? "Oh, mother-in-law, you're awake." Sabrina's voice cut through me like a cold knife. I turned around. There she was. My daughter-in-law, in pink satin pajamas and perfectly brushed hair, even though it was barely 7. Always perfect, always in control. "Sabrina." My voice came out weaker than I wanted. "Why is my dinnerware in the trash?" She didn't even blink. She poured herself a glass of water from the new filter she installed without asking and looked at me with that smile I knew too well. A smile that never reached her eyes. "Oh, that. Yes, mother-in-law. It was old. Look, even chipped. I went to the mall yesterday and bought a new set. More modern, see?" She pointed at the scene. Where my blue plates once lived, now sat a white minimalist set, cold, without history, without soul. But Sabrina, that dinnerware was from my marriage. You had no right to. "Oh, mother-in-law, don't get dramatic. They were just old plates. Plus, the house needed an update. Daniel thinks so too. It's 2025. We can't live surrounded by antiques." Antiques. She called 45 years of my life an antique. I felt something break inside of me. Not my heart. Something deeper. The last thread of patience I had. Because that dinnerware in the trash wasn't just about chipped porcelain. It was the perfect symbol of everything that had happened in these 8 months since Sabrina and Daniel temporarily moved into my home. If you want to know how a 8-year-old retired accountant, homeowner, ended up feeling like a stranger in her own house, stay with me, because this story is just beginning. And what I discovered after that dinnerware in the trash was much worse than I imagined. But before continuing, if stories like this touch your heart, subscribe to the channel. Here we share real stories of women who found their strength when everything seemed lost. Now let me tell you how we reached that cursed Tuesday. Because to understand why that dinnerware was the drop that overflowed the glass, you need to know what happened before. You need to know the mistake I made, the mistake of trusting too much. And it all started 8 months ago, with a phone call that would change my life forever. 8 months before finding my dinnerware in the trash, I received a call that shattered me. It was Daniel, my only son, my baby. Well, not really a baby anymore. 32 years old, civil engineer, married to Sabrina for 3 years. Always responsible, hardworking, or so I thought. "Mom, I need to talk to you." His voice sounded broken, exhausted. I knew immediately something terrible had happened. "Tell me, son, what happened?" "They fired me. The construction company went bankrupt. We're all out on the street with nothing." And Sabrina was 6 months pregnant. My blood ran cold, my son with no job, a granddaughter on the way. What mother wouldn't do whatever it takes? "What do you need?" I asked without hesitation. There was a long silence, too long. "Mom, I know it's a lot to ask, but could we stay with you for a few months, just until I find another job? We are behind on rent. They are about to evict us. Sabrina can't work because of her high-risk pregnancy, and please." I didn't let him finish. "This is your home. It always has been." I heard his sigh of relief, then Sabrina's voice in the background, sharp and excited. She said, "Yes, thank you, mother-in-law." I hung up the phone with my heart tight, but full of purpose. Of course I would help them. Daniel was my blood. And that baby on the way would be my first granddaughter. My family needed me. I spent the entire week preparing the guest room. I changed sheets, set out clean towels, bought diapers and baby clothes. I even painted a wall with clouds and stars, thinking about my future granddaughter. They arrived on a Sunday afternoon with 2 suitcases and many promises. "Just 2 months max, Mom. You'll see. I'll find something soon." Daniel assured me while carrying boxes. Sabrina hugged me. She smelled like expensive perfume. Way too expensive for someone with no income. "Oh, mother-in-law, you don't know how grateful we are. I promise we won't be a bother." How naive I was to believe her. The first days were normal. Daniel left early to drop off resumes. Sabrina rested because of her pregnancy. I cooked for the 3 of us, happy to have the house full again. Since I became a widow 7 years ago, silence had been my only companion. But the signs came quickly. First, the curtains. One Tuesday I came back from grocery shopping and the beige curtains in the living room were gone. In their place hung dark gray ones, making everything look like a funeral. "Oh, mother-in-law, the others were too faded. I bought these on sale." Sabrina said like it was nothing. Then the couch. She moved it without asking because the light comes in better this way. The couch where Frank and I watched TV every night. The couch where I rocked Daniel when he was a baby. Then the music. Sabrina blasted reggaeton while I tried to read. When I asked her to lower the volume, she sighed like I was some bitter old lady. "The baby needs stimulation, mother-in-law." I read it in a book. And I stayed quiet. Because they needed support. Because they were my family. Because a mother doesn't abandon her son in the storm. But the storm had just begun, and I didn't know the one who would end up drowning was me. 2 months turned into 3. 3 into 4. And little by little, my house was no longer mine. But the worst had yet to come. No one tells you when you stop being the owner of your own home. There isn't an exact moment. It slips away like sand between your fingers. One day you have control, and the next you wake up a visitor in your own house. That's what happened to me. By month 4, Sabrina no longer asked permission for anything. She just did whatever she wanted. One Saturday I came back from the market with bags of vegetables and almost fainted from shock. All the living room furniture was piled in the hallway. My mahogany bookshelf, my wedding photos, the sideboard I inherited from my grandmother. "What is going on?" I asked, heart racing. Sabrina appeared from the living room holding a measuring tape. "Oh, mother-in-law, perfect timing. Look, I hired a guy to help us move this furniture to the basement. With the baby, we'll need more space. I'll put a playpen here and a rocking chair over there. Isn't it perfect?" She wasn't asking. She was informing me. "But Sabrina, these pieces have sentimental value. They can't go to the basement. The humidity will ruin them." She looked at me with that expression I already knew too well, that mix of pity and impatience. "Mother-in-law, please, we are not in the 80 seconds anymore. These pieces are outdated. And what's the point of having nice things if they're just stored away? The baby needs room." She called the guy waiting outside. Together, they dragged my memories into that damp basement while I stood there helpless, still holding the grocery bags. That night, I cried in my room, but I said nothing. Because Daniel worked late looking for jobs. Because Sabrina was pregnant, and I didn't want to stress her. Because I was the mother-in-law, the one who was supposed to endure everything for the good of the family. By the 5th month, Sabrina's mother arrived. Without warning, I was making lunch when I heard the front door open, women's voices, laughter. I walked into the living room and there she was, a woman with oversized sunglasses and a travel bag. "Oh, mother-in-law," Sabrina shouted excitedly. "Look, this is my mom, Mrs. Calloway. She will stay a few days to help me with the pregnancy." "Mrs." Calloway extended her hand begrudgingly without removing her sunglasses. "Nice to meet you. Sabrina has talked a lot about you. Probably nothing good," I thought. "Of course, welcome." I said, forcing a smile. A few days turned into 2 weeks. Mrs. Calloway took over the remote, criticized my food, and left her belongings scattered everywhere. Worst of all, she filled Sabrina's head with ideas. "Honey, why don't you ask your mother-in-law for the big bedroom? Yours is too small for the baby." "Mom, I already told her, but she says it was her matrimonial room." "Oh please, she's alone. Why does she need so much space? Besides, when someone lets you stay at their home, they should offer the whole house, right?" I listened from the kitchen, hands in soapy water, washing their dirty dishes. I took a deep breath. "Don't say anything, Eleanor. Don't create problems." But the problems were already here, living in my living room, sleeping in my guest room, breathing my air. And when Mrs. Calloway finally left, she didn't just take her suitcase. She left Sabrina convinced that I had to give up more, that my home should practically belong to her. In the 6th month, Daniel got a job. Part-time, low pay, but at least something. I thought they would move out soon. But when I brought it up one night during dinner, they exchanged an awkward look. "Mom, it's still not enough to rent anything decent," Daniel said without meeting my eyes. "And with the baby coming, we need to save," Sabrina added, patting her belly. "Right, mother-in-law? You understand?" Of course I understood. I understood that they were using me, but my mouth said, "Yes, of course, stay as long as you need." That night I couldn't sleep. Something inside me was screaming that I had lost control, that a line had been crossed, and I couldn't go back. But I still didn't know how far they would go. Aria was born on a Tuesday before dawn. I remember every detail. Sabrina screaming from her room, Daniel running for the car keys, me with my heart in my throat helping her down the stairs. At the hospital, I waited 8 hours in that cold room that smelled like disinfectant and old coffee. And when they finally let me in, and I saw that tiny baby wrapped in pink blankets with her little hands and closed eyes, the world stopped. My granddaughter. The first time I held her, everything felt worth it. All the discomfort, all the sacrifices, all the space I had surrendered. Nothing mattered compared to the warm weight of her in my arms. "She's perfect," I whispered with tears falling down my cheeks. Sabrina looked at me from the hospital bed with a strange smile, as if she had won something. And indeed she had. Because from that moment on, Aria became the most powerful weapon Sabrina had against me. We came home 3 days later. I had prepared everything. Diapers, clean baby clothes, sterilized bottles. I even bought a beautiful wooden crib and placed it in their room. But on the second day, Sabrina walked into the kitchen while I was making breakfast. "Mother-in-law, we need to talk." I turned. She had Aria in her arms, using my granddaughter as a shield. "It's about my room. It is too small for the 3 of us. The baby cries at night and we don't have space for all her stuff. I need you to give me the big bedroom." The big bedroom, my bedroom. The one I shared with Frank for 35 years. "Sabrina, that room holds so many memories for me. It's where—" She cut me off with a firm voice. "Are you really going to deny this baby a comfortable space? You are alone. I am the one caring for a newborn. What's more important?" I was speechless. How could I argue with that? How do you say no when they make it sound like choosing your comfort over your granddaughter's well-being? "Give me a few days to think," I said with a trembling voice. "Fine. But while you think, the baby is suffering in that tiny room. She barely sleeps at night." 5 days later, I was sleeping in the small room, and Sabrina had turned my marital bedroom into a baby suite with a crib, changing table, rocking chair, and even a mini fridge for bottles. She never asked for help moving my things. One day, I came back from the bank, and it was simply done. But that was only the beginning. "Mother-in-law, why do you cook with so much garlic and onion? It harms the baby through my milk." "Mother-in-law, don't wear that perfume. The chemicals affect newborns." "Mother-in-law, can you turn the TV down? The baby needs silence to sleep." "Mother-in-law, my mom says babies need a constant temperature. Can you leave the air conditioning on all day?" "I'll pay." "Oh wait, you pay the electric bill. But it's for Aria, right?" Every request came wrapped in my granddaughter's name. And I agreed to everything because every time I saw that perfect little face, every time Aria wrapped her tiny hand around my finger or gave me one of those innocent smiles, I melted. Sabrina knew it, and she used it. By the 7th month, I had to give up my sewing room. That space where I spent my afternoons repairing clothes, where I kept my old Singer machine. My fabrics, my patterns, my place of peace. "We need a playroom for when Aria grows up," Sabrina said one Sunday while we had coffee. "She's already 2 months old and soon she'll need early stimulation." "Your sewing room can wait, right, mother-in-law?" I packed away my machines in boxes. I put my fabrics into plastic bags. I moved everything down to the damp basement where my grandmother's furniture already suffered. That night, I sat at the edge of my new bed in what used to be the guest room. I stared at myself in the mirror across from me. A 8-year-old woman with more white in her hair than before, deep circles under her eyes, living like a guest in the house I built with 40 years of hard work. How did I end up here? Daniel worked so much that I barely saw him. When I mentioned anything about Sabrina, he would say, "Mom, she just wants the best for Aria. You want that too, right?" And I nodded. Because yes, I wanted the best for my granddaughter. But no one asked what was best for me. And then that cursed Tuesday arrived, the day of the dinnerware in the trash, the day something inside me finally said enough. There I was, standing in front of the trash can holding that cobalt blue plate with trembling hands. 45 years of marriage reduced to garbage. Sabrina stood there drinking her water like nothing was wrong. As if she had thrown away an old newspaper, not the memories of my entire life. "You know what, mother-in-law? You should thank me. That dinnerware made the kitchen look so outdated. Now everything looks cleaner, more modern." She even took photos for her Instagram. "Look," she showed me her phone. There they were. Pictures of her in my kitchen with the new dishes and a caption that said, "Renewing spaces." Sometimes you have to let go of the old to make room for the new. 52 comments, everyone praising how beautiful it looked. Nobody knew that the old she let go of was my history, that every plate had a memory. "This dinnerware," I said with a shaky voice. "My husband gave it to me on our wedding day. We had our first breakfast as newlyweds on these plates. We celebrated Daniel's first birthday with them. The last Christmas with my parents was served here." Sabrina rolled her eyes. "Oh, mother-in-law, they're just plates. You can't live in the past. Frank died 7 years ago, your parents too. Daniel is an adult. Life goes on. And this house needed an upgrade. Just plates. Frank died, as if love disappears with death, as if memories lose their value." I pulled another plate from the trash. It had dried coffee stains. I had used it that very morning, and they tossed it like something disposable. "See this chip?" I pointed at the rim. "Your husband, my son Daniel, was 3 years old. Frank was washing dishes after dinner. He dropped this plate. He was so scared he almost cried. He said, 'Honey, I'm sorry. I broke your wedding plate.' And I told him it didn't matter, that accidents happen. I never fixed it because that chip reminded me that nothing has to be perfect to be valuable." Sabrina sighed with exasperation. "Mother-in-law, are we seriously doing drama over one chipped plate? Look, if you care so much, keep that one. The rest are already in the trash truck schedule. 1 hour. I had 1 hour to rescue 45 years of my life before they ended up in a landfill." I knelt in front of the trash can. I started pulling the dishes out one by one. 8 plates, 6 bowls, 4 cups, the big soup tureen, the small milk pitcher, all filthy, smeared with eggshells and food scraps. Sabrina watched from above with her arms crossed. Mother-in-law, are you seriously going to take that out? It's disgusting." Yes, I was going to take it out, piece by piece. Because this dinnerware wasn't trash. This dinnerware was me. It was my story, proof that I had lived, that I had loved, that I had built a family, and someone threw it away as if it meant nothing. I finished pulling everything out. My hands were shaking, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I stood up slowly, very slowly, because something inside me was changing. Something that had been asleep for 8 months was finally waking up. I looked Sabrina straight in the eye. "This dinnerware is worth more than all your new things put together, because this dinnerware has soul. It has history. It has love. You know what your white plates have? Nothing. They are as empty as you." Sabrina's eyes widened. She had never heard me speak like that. "Excuse me? I don't excuse you. Not anymore." I took my dinnerware to the sink and started washing it, piece by piece, with care, with respect. Sabrina stood there unsure of what to say. For the first time in 8 months, she wasn't in control. And while I washed those plates covered in trash, scrubbing away the filth she had put on them, I made a decision. This had become a war, and I wasn't going to lose. That night I couldn't sleep. I stayed sitting on the bed in the small room. My room now, lights off, staring out the window at the moon shining over the garden Frank and I planted so many years ago. The clean dishes rested in a box beside me. I had dried them with the same care someone gives a newborn. Every piece represented something Sabrina tried to erase, but I wasn't stupid. The dinnerware wasn't the real problem. The real problem was that I had become a stranger in my own home, and worst of all, I had allowed it. At 3 a.m, I turned on the nightstand lamp. I pulled from the drawer a green folder where I kept all my important documents. I needed to see things clearly, with numbers, with facts, the house deed with my name on it. I paid for it with 40 years of work as an accountant in a mid-size firm. Every dollar of this property came from my effort, my sleepless nights, my sacrifices. I opened my bank statements. I started adding expenses from the last 8 months. Electricity, $1,890 monthly. Over 8 months, $15,120. The usage had tripled since they arrived. Air conditioning running all day for Arya. Lights on in every room because Sabrina was afraid of the dark. Water, $640 a month. $5,120 total. Sabrina showered twice a day. The washer ran daily with tiny loads because she refused to mix the baby's clothes with anything else. Gas, $1,200 monthly. $9,600 total. Sabrina cooked constantly and left the stove on so bottled water was always ready. Internet, $599 monthly. $4,792. She used it to watch her shows while Arya slept and to post photos of her remodeled home on Instagram. Groceries. I paid everything. An average of $3,500 weekly for 4 people, $112,000 in 8 months. Sabrina demanded expensive brands, organic products for the baby, things I never bought when I lived alone. I stared at the final number, unable to breathe. $142,632. In 8 months, I had spent almost $143,000 supporting 3 people who treated me like a maid in my own house. And what had Daniel contributed? $1,500 every 2 weeks when he could. $3,000 a month. Maybe 24,000 inches 8 months. And Sabrina? Zero. Absolutely nothing. Not a single peso. Not a single genuine gesture of gratitude. I continued checking documents. I found the receipt for the new dinnerware. $18,500. Bought at Nordstrom with home delivery. But wait. I looked closer. The payment method said credit card ending in 1929. I didn't have any card ending in 1929. I checked all my statements, and there it was. A charge of $18,500 at Nordstrom 3 weeks ago on my credit card. The one I kept in the drawer of my desk in the master bedroom. The bedroom that was now Sabrina's. I felt the air leave my lungs. Sabrina had used my card without permission. She had gone into my desk, taken my card, and bought a new dinnerware set to replace mine. With my own money. That wasn't disrespect. That was theft. I got up from the bed shaking, not with fear, with rage. I paced the small room trying to process what I had just discovered. How many more times had she used my card? What else had she bought with my money? I reviewed every transaction from the past months, and there they were. Charges I didn't recognize. Clothes at Zara, makeup at Sephora, home decor at Home Depot, shoes from Shasa, everything adding up to $34,000 more. Sabrina had been stealing from me for months, and I didn't even notice. Because I trusted. Because they were family. Because you don't expect to guard yourself against your own blood. I sat on the floor with all the documents scattered around me. Tears began to fall. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of clarity. I was finally seeing the truth. Daniel and Sabrina were not here temporarily. They were not saving up to move out. They were using me like a free hotel while spending my money on luxuries. And when there was nothing left to take from me, they would leave me alone again. But this time without a home, without savings, without dignity. That was not going to happen. I looked at the clock. 4:30 in the morning. In a few hours, the bank would open. And I had calls to make. Because if there is one thing 40 years working with numbers taught me, it is this. You must always have evidence before taking action, and I already had all the proof I needed. But before making any legal move, I needed to be completely sure of something. I needed to know if Daniel and Sabrina truly saw me as family, or if I was only a source of money. I needed one final test that would erase any doubt, any guilt, because suspecting is one thing, knowing for sure is another. So 2 days after finding the charges on my card, I decided to run an experiment, a painful one, but necessary. It was Thursday morning. Daniel had already left for work. Sabrina was in the living room watching videos on her phone while Arya slept in her playpen. I walked over slowly, holding my chest, letting my breathing become unsteady. I leaned on the door frame. "Sabrina," I said with a weak voice. She did not even look up from her phone. "What is it, mother-in-law?" "I feel really sick. My chest hurts a lot. I can't breathe well." Now she finally looked at me, but not with concern, with annoyance. "Oh, mother-in-law, again with your aches? It's probably just indigestion. Drink some chamomile tea." "No, Sabrina, this is different. The pain goes into my left arm. My father died of heart issues, and I am scared." I let myself fall onto the couch, pretending the pain was worse, because I needed to see how far her indifference would go. Sabrina sighed. She got up from the sofa reluctantly. "And what do you want me to do?" "I can't take you to the doctor. I have to take care of Arya. Please, can you call Daniel, or drive me, and bring the baby with us?" "I really feel awful." Sabrina checked her phone. She made a face of irritation. "Oh no, mother-in-law, today is Thursday. I'm meeting my friends at 12 for lunch. I haven't gone out in 2 weeks. You can't ask me to cancel." I stared at her, waiting for her to joke, to say she would take me, that she didn't mean it. But she didn't. "Sabrina, I'm telling you my chest hurts. It could be a heart attack." "Oh, mother-in-law, don't exaggerate. If it were a heart attack, you'd already be on the floor. Besides, you've always been healthy. It's probably stress or something you ate. Rest a while, and if it doesn't go away, call a cab. I really can't cancel. My friends are on their way." She turned around and went upstairs to get ready. I sat there, hand still on my chest, processing what had just happened. It wasn't acting anymore. The pain in my chest was now real. But it didn't come from my physical heart. It came from realizing that to Sabrina, lunch with her friends mattered more than my life. I waited 5 more minutes. Sabrina came down perfectly made up, holding a designer bag that I never understood how she could afford. Now I knew. With my card. Mother-in-law still lying there. "I told you to drink some tea, and please watch Arya. I'll be back around 5. And she left. She left me alone, supposedly in the middle of a heart problem. To go eat with her friends. I stayed motionless for a moment. Then I grabbed my phone and called the only person I knew would come. "Mrs. Whitlock?" answered Mrs. Higgins, my lifelong neighbor. "Remedios, can you take me to Dr. Rowe's office? I don't feel well. I'm coming right now." 3 minutes later, she knocked on my door. She helped me into her car and drove me to the neighborhood clinic. Dr. Rowe, who had known me for 20 years, examined me carefully. High blood pressure, fast heart rate, chest tension. "Eleanor, this is not a heart attack, but it is a serious warning. This is chronic stress. Anxiety. Your body is asking for help. What is going on in your life?" And there, in that clinic that smelled like alcohol and cotton, with Mrs. Higgins holding my hand, everything came out. I told him about Sabrina, about the home being taken over, about the dinnerware in the trash, about the stolen money, about that morning when she left me alone thinking I might be dying. "Eleanor," the doctor said firmly, "if you don't do something soon, the next chest pain will be real. Your body can't take any more." Mrs. Higgins squeezed my hand. "Comadre, it's time. That girl is slowly killing you and you're letting her." They were right. Both were right. The test was over and the result was devastating. To Sabrina, I wasn't family. I was a resource, a free hotel, an open wallet, and Daniel. My son didn't even know what was happening because he was never around. And when he was, he refused to see. I left that clinic with a prescription for blood pressure and absolute certainty in my heart. It was over. That same night I would begin my plan. Because it was no longer just about money or plates. It was about my life. and I wasn't going to die feeling like a stranger in my own house. I got home after 4 in the afternoon. Sabrina still hadn't returned from lunch with her friends. I went straight to the small room and locked the door. I took out my old notebook with the worn cover that I used to keep records and began writing. A plan. Step by step. But first I needed professional help. Someone who understood the law. Someone I could fully trust. I dialed a number I had saved for years. Aunt Eleanor? A young, surprised voice answered. Nadine, my girl, I need your help. Nadine was my niece, daughter of my younger sister who passed away 10 years ago. I helped her pay for part of her law studies. Now she worked at a firm specializing in family and civil law. Of course, Aunt, what's wrong? You sound worried. Can you come tomorrow? I need legal advice. And let this stay between us. There was a pause. Nadine was smart. She immediately understood something serious was happening. Tomorrow at 10, I'll be there. All right? Perfect. And Nadine, thank you. That night, when Sabrina returned at 8, not 5 like she promised, smelling of wine and carrying shopping bags, I already had half the plan ready. The next day, Friday, Daniel left early. Sabrina announced she was taking Aria to her mother's house for a few hours. It was the perfect moment. Nadine arrived right on time. I saw her through the window getting out of her car holding a professional-looking briefcase. Tall, hair neatly tied back, navy blue suit. The daughter my sister would have been proud to see. I opened the door before she even knocked. Come in, quickly. We sat in the kitchen. I poured her coffee and spread everything on the table. Bank statements, receipts, the house deed, photographs of the unauthorized charges on my card. Nadine reviewed everything with the eyes of an attorney. Her expression hardened with each document. Aunt, this is fraud. Unauthorized use of a credit card. You can file criminal charges against Sabrina. I don't want her in jail. I just want them out of my house and my money returned. Understood. Then here's what we'll do next. Nadine opened her laptop and started typing. First, we prepare an eviction notice. You have every legal right. This is your home. It's in your name. They don't pay rent and have no contract. We'll give them 30 days to leave. And if they refuse, then we file for a court-ordered eviction. But this document gives you legal backing. Second, you must block all your cards today. Call the bank and report the unauthorized charges. Won't that get Sabrina into trouble? Aunt, she's already in trouble. She committed a crime. You're being generous by not reporting her directly to the police. Nadine kept typing. The sound of her keyboard filled the kitchen like a war drum. Third, we calculate everything they owe you. Utilities, groceries, use of your property. If you want to reach a settlement, you have the legal base to demand compensation. We spent 3 hours reviewing everything. Nadine wrote a flawless document, formal yet clear. When she finished, she showed it to me. Eviction notice. It stated that Daniel Whitlock and Sabrina Calloway had 30 calendar days to vacate the property located at Maple Crest Drive, 847 Linda Vista neighborhood. A copy of the deed and a breakdown of expenses were attached. This has legal weight, Aunt. If you sign it and give it to them with witnesses present, they cannot claim they didn't know later. Witnesses? Yes, I can be one, and we need someone else. Mrs. Higgins? I nodded. My neighbor would never hesitate to help me. One more thing, Aunt. Nadine looked at me seriously. Are you ready for this? Because Daniel is your son and it will hurt to see him angry. He will say ugly things. He will try to make you feel guilty. I stayed silent for a moment. I thought of Daniel as a baby, Daniel as a teenager, every time I supported him, hugged him, defended him. But I also thought of the Daniel of now. The one who was never around, the one who chose not to see, the one who left me at his wife's mercy. I'm ready, I said firmly. I'm not just his mother anymore. I am Eleanor, and Eleanor deserves respect. Nadine smiled. She squeezed my hand. There she is. The aunt I know. The one who doesn't let anyone step on her. We printed 3 copies of the document. I signed them with a trembling but determined hand. Nadine hugged me before leaving. When you are ready to deliver it, call me. I will come. I watched her drive away. I went upstairs and locked the documents in my drawer. The plan was ready. Now I just needed the right moment. But first there was one last thing. I needed to confirm my suspicions about Daniel and Sabrina's true intentions. And what I discovered that same afternoon froze my blood. That afternoon, while putting the papers away, I heard voices in the garden. I looked out the small room's window. Daniel had arrived early. He was with Sabrina by the fountain Frank installed years ago. They spoke quietly, but the wind carried parts of their conversation to my ears. "Just 6 more months, and we'll have enough for the down payment," Sabrina said. "Are you sure?" "My mom is acting strange lately," Daniel replied. "Your mom is all drama. As long as Arya is near, she won't do anything. We have her eating out of our hands." I felt the ground disappear beneath me. "Maybe we should look for something soon. I don't want to take advantage." Daniel's voice sounded guilty. "Oh, Daniel, don't be dumb. Your mom lives alone in this huge house. We are doing her a favor by keeping her company. And why pay rent when we can save here? In 6 months, we save the $200,000 for the down payment, and we leave. Easy. $200,000. They wanted 6 more months to save that while I paid everything." "And what if she gets upset?" Daniel asked. "She won't. She's your mom. Mexican moms put up with everything for their kids. Besides, I already took like $50,000 from her card and she didn't even notice." Daniel said nothing. He didn't scold her. He wasn't horrified. He just stayed silent. And that silence told me everything I needed to know. My son knew. Maybe not every detail, but he knew Sabrina was using me, and he allowed it. I closed the window with shaking hands. Not from fear, from fury. It was over. I went downstairs. I walked into the garden, where they were still talking. "I need both of you to come to the living room, now." My voice came out so cold, they both turned startled. "Mom, what's going on?" Daniel asked. "To the living room, now." We went in. I remained standing. They sat on the couch, Sabrina holding Arya. I took out the documents Nadine and I had printed and placed them on the coffee table. "What is this?" Sabrina asked, picking one up. "Read." I watched their eyes scan the lines, watched their faces go from confused to shocked. Daniel read over her shoulder. "Mom, an eviction?" His voice cracked. "You have 30 days to find a place to live." "But why?" Sabrina stood up. "What did we do?" I stared directly at her without blinking. "Are you seriously asking what you did? Seriously?" "Mother-in-law, if this is about the dinnerware, I already apologized." "It's not just the dinnerware, Sabrina. It's everything. 8 months treating me like a free hotel, changing my house without permission, kicking me out of my own bedroom, dismantling my sewing room, using my credit card without authorization." Sabrina turned pale. "I didn't." $34,000. I pulled out another document. "That's what you spent on my card without permission. Here are all the charges. Zara, Sephora, Nordstrom, Home Depot." "Do I need to keep going?" "Mom, there has to be a misunderstanding," Daniel interrupted. "There is no misunderstanding, Daniel. I heard you both in the garden earlier, talking about staying 6 more months to save $200,000, using my home as your personal piggy bank." Daniel was speechless. Sabrina started crying. "Mother-in-law, I'm sorry. I just wanted Arya to have a better life." "At the expense of mine? By stealing from me? Using my granddaughter as a shield whenever it benefited you? It's not stealing." "We are family," Sabrina shouted. "Family shows respect, Sabrina. Family shows gratitude. Family doesn't throw away 45 years of memories like garbage." "Mom, please." Daniel stood up. "You're my mother. You owe us support. We are going through a hard time." Those words were the final straw. "What I owe you? Let me be clear." My voice rose. "I gave you life. I paid for school, for college. I provided a roof over your head for 30 years. I opened the doors of this home again when you needed it. And guess what? I owe you nothing else. I paid my debt as a mother a long time ago. But we're your family. You can't kick us out," he insisted. "I can, Sabrina, and I am. This house is mine. I paid for it. I decide who lives here, and you won't anymore." Daniel fell back onto the sofa. For the first time, he really looked at me, as if after 8 months he was finally waking up. "Mom," his voice was a whisper. "I'm sorry." "Me too." I felt tears wanting to escape, but I held them in. "I'm sorry it came to this, but you left me no choice." Sabrina kept crying with Arya in her arms. The baby began to fuss, feeling the tension. 30 days, I repeated. "If you haven't found where to go by then, I will proceed legally with the eviction. And trust me, you don't want us to reach that point." I left the living room before they could see my tears. But something else was about to explode. Something I didn't even know was coming. I wasn't even halfway up the stairs when I heard Sabrina scream. "This is your fault, Daniel. I told you your mom was a bitter old woman. That's why your dad died of pure anger living with her." I froze. Those words pierced through me like bullets. I turned around slowly, very slowly. I walked down each step with a calm I didn't feel. Inside, I was boiling. "What did you just say?" I asked with a dangerously low voice. Sabrina realized her mistake and tried to step back. "Mother-in-law, I didn't mean..." "Say it again." I took a step toward her. "Tell me again why my husband died." "Mom, stop. Sabrina is nervous." Daniel tried to intervene. "No." My shout made them both jump. "I want to hear it from her mouth. Do you think Frank died out of anger from living with me?" Sabrina swallowed hard, but I had underestimated her. Cornered, she attacked. "Well, look at this house. Old, outdated, full of dirty old things. Your home is ugly anyway. That's why I had to remodel it." Something inside me broke, but not from pain, from absolute clarity. I walked to my desk in the dining room. I took out a folder I had prepared that same morning after talking to Nadine. I had saved it for the right moment, and this was the moment. "You want to talk about ugly things, Sabrina?" I opened the folder. "Let's talk about this." I pulled out the bank statements with the charges highlighted in neon yellow. One by one, I laid them on the table. $18,500 on new dinnerware, with my card. $3,200 on clothes for you, with my card. $1,800 on makeup, with my card. $4,500 on home decor, with my card. $6,000 on shoes and handbags, with my card. I kept pulling out papers. The stacks grew taller. "Do you know what this is called, Sabrina?" "Fraud. Unauthorized use of a credit card. It is a criminal offense." Daniel jumped up, snatching the papers from me. His eyes scanned the numbers, the dates, the transactions. "Sabrina," his voice trembled. "Is this true?" She didn't answer. She just stood there, holding Arya, who was now crying loudly. "Answer me," Daniel shouted. "Did you steal my mom's card?" "It's not stealing. She has plenty of money," Sabrina defended herself. "She lives alone in this huge house, living off her pension. Why does she need so much? We have a baby. And that gives you the right?" Daniel's face turned red with anger. "Does that give you the right to steal? You said my mom owed us help. My mother told me when someone lets you stay in their house, they must give you everything. Not halfway. Your mom is selfish." "Enough." Daniel's shout shook the walls. "That's enough, Sabrina." For the first time in 8 months, I saw my son actually defend something. Defend me, but I wasn't finished. "There's more." I pulled out another document. "This is the call history from my landline, the one in the kitchen. See these calls marked in red? All are to the bank. 32 calls in 3 months. Sabrina turned pale as a sheet. "I received an email from the bank 2 weeks ago asking if I had authorized a credit limit increase. I never requested that, but someone called pretending to be me. And the bank has recordings of those calls." I took out one last paper, a screenshot of an email. "You also intercepted my email, didn't you? The bank sent me a notice about that increase. I never saw it, until I checked and found all bank emails marked as read and deleted." Daniel stared at the papers like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Sabrina, tell me this isn't true, please." She started crying uncontrollably. "Your mom has us living off scraps. She treats us like we owe her our lives. I only took what we deserved. You deserved nothing." My voice came out like ice. "I opened my home to you. I fed you. I supported you. I gave you a room. My space. My peace. And you repaid me by stealing from me, by humiliating me, by throwing my history in the trash." I turned to Daniel. $34,000 in unauthorized purchases, but if we add utilities, groceries, the use of my property, you owe me more than $160,000. "Mom," I didn't know. "But you didn't want to know." I looked him directly in the eyes. "You left every morning and never asked how I was. You never noticed I stopped cooking with garlic, that I stopped sewing, that I stopped being myself in my own house." Daniel collapsed on the sofa with his head in his hands. Sabrina kept crying, but now they were tears of fear, not guilt. "You have 2 options. I raised 2 fingers. You pay the $34,000 of unauthorized charges and leave in 15 days. Not 30. Or I file a criminal complaint for fraud, and then a judge will handle it. The silence that followed was deafening. Only Arya's cries and Sabrina's sobs filled the room. And I stood there, in my home, finally reclaiming what was mine. Sabrina dropped onto the couch. Her crying changed. It was no longer rage, it was panic, because she finally understood I was serious. Mother-in-law, please. Her voice broke. Don't do this. Think about Arya. She's your granddaughter. Are you really going to separate us? You separated yourself when you decided to steal from me. Daniel lifted his head. His eyes were red. Mom, give me time. I will pay you everything. But don't file charges, please. Sabrina wouldn't go to jail, right? It depends on the judge. But with this evidence, it's very likely she will at least have a criminal record. That means she wouldn't be able to work in many places, or get credit, or travel to certain countries. Sabrina began to hyperventilate. No, Daniel, do something. Tell your mom to stop. What should I do? Daniel looked at her with an expression I had never seen before. Where were you when my mom needed help? When she had that chest pain and you went out to eat with your friends, leaving her alone, where was your concern? Sabrina's eyes went wide. How do you know that? Mrs. Higgins told me yesterday. She saw me at the store and asked how my mom was after the scare. I had no idea what she was talking about. I had to ask. And I felt ashamed, Sabrina. Very ashamed, knowing my mom could have had a heart attack, and I didn't even know because you didn't tell me anything. It's just that I thought it was all drama. My mom never makes drama. Daniel stood up. That is my mom, the woman who became a widow and still kept this house running by herself. The one who worked 40 years to have something of her own. And you call her dramatic? It was the first time in 8 months I saw Daniel defend something so passionately. I wished it had been sooner. I wished it hadn't needed to reach this point. Sabrina hugged herself while holding Arya. My mom told me that when a mother-in-law offers her home, it's her obligation to support the whole family, that I didn't need to ask permission for anything because it was my right. And there it was, the real truth. Your mom filled your head with wrong ideas, I said tiredly, and you believed them because they benefited you. Sabrina broke into tears again, but this time there was a hint of real remorse in her crying. I'm sorry, I really am. I don't know when everything got out of control. At first I only wanted to help with small changes. Then my mom told me it was my chance to have nice things because you had money, and I never had much growing up. I always wanted nice things. A beautiful home. And when I saw you didn't say anything, I thought you didn't care. Of course I cared. I just didn't know how to set boundaries without being the bad mother-in-law, without pushing my son away, without losing my granddaughter. Daniel walked closer to me. Mom, forgive me. Forgive me for not being here, for not seeing, for letting this happen. I looked at him. I saw the child I raised, the man he had become, and I saw his mistakes too. I forgive you, son. But that doesn't change what needs to happen now. The $34,000. Daniel nodded. I'll pay you, even if I have to work triple shifts. Even if it takes me a year, I swear I'll pay you. You don't have a year. I want you out in 15 days. All right, 15 days. We'll find something. Anything. Even a small room. But Mom? His voice cracked. Don't file the charges. Arya needs her mother. Daniel looked at his wife. Sabrina made mistakes, but she isn't a bad person. I looked at Sabrina. There she was, broken, holding my granddaughter, tears falling uncontrollably. Was she a bad person? I didn't know. Maybe she was just a young woman, immature, poisoned by a toxic mother. Maybe under different circumstances we could have had a different relationship, but that no longer mattered. I won't file the charges, I finally said, with 3 conditions. They both looked at me hopefully. First, the $34,000 are paid in installments, $2,000 per month until the debt is complete. If you miss even one payment, I proceed legally. Agreed, Daniel said immediately. Second, you leave in 15 days, not 30. And when you leave, you return all keys and any copies you made. Agreed. Third, Sabrina writes me a letter, by hand, admitting everything she did, apologizing. She gives me that letter before she leaves, and I will keep it. If you ever try to twist this on me, If you ever speak badly about me to the family, if you ever claim I was the villain, I will show that letter." Sabrina lifted her head and nodded between sobs. "I will do it. I swear I will. Then we have a deal." I turned to go upstairs, but before I reached the first step, Daniel stopped me. "Mom, will you ever be able to truly forgive us one day?" I looked at him over my shoulder. "Forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, son, and it doesn't mean things go back to how they were. But yes, one day, when you prove with actions, not words, that you learned." The next 15 days were the strangest of my life. Sabrina and Daniel moved through the house like ghosts, packing in silence, searching for apartments online until late at night. No more loud music, no more demands, no more fake smiles. Only an uncomfortable and necessary silence. I didn't talk much either. I focused on slowly reclaiming my space. I took my sewing machines out of the basement. I cleaned the room that used to be my workshop. I hung the beige curtains back up in the living room. Mrs. Higgins came every afternoon to keep me company with coffee and sweet bread. "How do you feel, friend?" Strange, like I'm waking up from a very long nightmare. Because that's what it was, but it's over now. You finally set things right. On day 12, Sabrina knocked on my room door. She held an envelope in her hands. "Mother-in-law, here is the letter you asked for." I took it without opening it. "Thank you." She remained standing there as if waiting for me to say something else. "Is that all?" she asked with a small voice. "What else do you want me to say, Sabrina?" "I don't know. I thought maybe we could talk, that you could tell me how to be better, how to fix this." I looked directly into her eyes. "It's not my job to teach you respect. You should have learned that years ago, and there is nothing to fix between us, only consequences to live through." Her eyes filled with tears again. "Do you hate me?" The question surprised me. I thought for a moment before answering. "I don't hate you, Sabrina. Hate requires energy I no longer have. I simply don't trust you anymore. And without trust, there can be no relationship." She left my room without another word. Day 15 arrived too fast and too slow at the same time. Daniel rented a moving truck. He and a friend loaded the few belongings they had brought 8 months earlier. Now they had more, much more. Things they bought with my money without me knowing. They found an apartment in the Tempe Town Lake area. 2 bedrooms, about 860 square feet, rent of $11,000 a month. Daniel would work 2 jobs to pay it. Sabrina would have to find work too. Real life had finally caught up with them. At 4 in the afternoon, the truck was packed. Daniel came inside one last time. "Mom, everything is ready. We are leaving." "Good. Here are the keys." He placed them on the kitchen table. "That's all of them. We didn't make copies." "Thank you." There was a long silence. Daniel wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. "Mom, take care of your family, Daniel, and don't forget the payments. First of every month." "I won't forget." He stepped forward as if to hug me. I instinctively took a step back. Daniel stopped. The pain on his face was clear. "You're still very angry." "I'm not angry. I'm tired. I need space." He nodded in sadness. "I love you, Mom. I love you too. But love isn't enough when there's no respect." He walked out of the house. I stayed in the kitchen looking through the window. Sabrina got into the truck with Arya in her arms. Before closing the door, she looked at me. Our eyes met for a second. I raised my hand in a neutral gesture, not a loving goodbye, not anger, just acknowledgement that this chapter was over. She gave a slight nod and closed the door. The truck started. I watched them turn the corner and disappear. And then the house went quiet, a different quiet from before. Not the quiet of invasion, not the tension of walking on eggshells in your own home. It was the quiet of peace. I stood there a few more minutes. Then I slowly walked through each room. The living room, no toys scattered. No baby bottles on the table. The dining room, no diapers forgotten on chairs. My master bedroom, empty. The walls marked where they had hung things. The floor scratched from the crib. But it was mine again. I went down to the basement. There were my grandmother's furniture. My wedding photo. The mahogany bookshelf. "You can come back upstairs," I whispered. "We are home again." That night I slept in my own bed for the first time in months. The sheets smelled new. I had to buy a new set because Sabrina took the ones she used. I lay there staring at the ceiling. The same ceiling Frank and I looked at before sleeping. the same one where we planned our dreams. I did it, love, I said into the air. I got our house back. I set boundaries. I stood up for myself. And for the first time in 8 months I cried, but not from sadness. I cried from relief. The next morning I woke up to birds singing, not Aria crying, not with Sabrina's heavy footsteps coming down the stairs, not with the TV blasting since 6 in the morning, just birds singing. I stayed in bed a few minutes longer, savoring that precious silence. Then I got up. I put on my favorite robe, the one Sabrina hid in the back of the closet because she said it looked too old, and I went downstairs to the kitchen. I made myself cinnamon coffee with brown sugar, the kind I like without worrying whether the smell bothered anyone. I sat by the window and sipped my coffee slowly as the sun lit up the garden, and I smiled. The first days were deep cleaning, not just physical, emotional too. Mrs. Higgins came to help me. So, friend, where do we start? With the master bedroom. I want it to be mine again. Together we moved the crib Sabrina left behind. We gave it to a pregnant neighbor. We removed the changing table, the rocker, the mini fridge. We sanded the marks on the walls. We painted them a soft blue I had always loved, but never dared to use. It looks beautiful, Eleanor, like a hotel room. It looks like my room. That's what matters. I hired a locksmith, Mr. Esteban, a 70-year-old man who had spent 30 years changing locks in the neighborhood. Mrs. Whitlock, everything okay? Why change all the locks? Let's just say I need a fresh start, Mr. Esteban. He understood without more questions. In 2 hours, the entire house had new locks. $1,200 well spent on peace of mind. I brought up the furniture from the basement with help from Mrs. Higgins' son. The mahogany bookshelf went back by the window. The wedding photo returned to the main shelf. My grandmother's sideboard reclaimed its place in the dining room. It was as if the house itself could finally breathe. But I needed help too, not just physical. I searched online for local therapists. I found Dr. Patricia Montez, specialist in family therapy and boundary setting. My first session was on a Tuesday afternoon. Eleanor, tell me what brings you here. And I told her everything, from Daniel's phone call asking for help to the day I kicked them out. Without skipping details, without sugarcoating, Dr. Montez listened without interrupting. When I finished, she nodded. Do you know what you did, Eleanor? Something many women of your generation never managed to do. You set boundaries. You said enough. You chose your well-being over guilt. But I feel like I failed as a mother. You did not fail. You taught the most important lesson. That love does not mean allowing abuse. That respect is the foundation of every relationship. That you matter too. Her words lifted a weight I didn't even know I was carrying. I started going every week. $850 per session. The best money I have ever spent. I reclaimed my sewing room. I brought out my fabrics again, my patterns, my old Singer machine I inherited from my mom. The hum of the machine filled my soul. I sewed tablecloths, repaired neighbors' clothes, embroidered handkerchiefs with initials. Not because I needed the money, but because I needed to create again. One afternoon, Mrs. Higgins arrived with a small box. Look what I brought you, friend. Inside was a tiny kitten, gray with black stripes, big green eyes. She showed up in my garden. She's alone, and I thought you two would be good company for each other. I held her. She was so small she fit in my hand. She purred instantly. Hi, little one. What should I call you? The kitten looked at me with those moon-like eyes. Luna. Your name will be Luna. And just like that, Luna moved in with me. She slept in my bed, followed me around the house, curled up in my lap while I sewed. For the first time in months, the house felt alive again, but alive with my energy, not someone else's chaos. On the first day of the next month, the doorbell rang. A delivery man handed me an envelope. Inside were $2,000 in cash and a note from Daniel. First monthly payment, promise kept. I love you, Mom. I placed the money in a jar, not because I desperately needed it, but because it was proof they were learning. Little by little, the house stopped smelling like conflict and went back to smelling like cinnamon, fresh coffee, and the flowers in the garden. I was no longer the frightened Eleanor who tiptoed around her own house. I was simply Eleanor again, owner of her space, owner of her peace, owner of her life. 6 months passed like a sigh, 6 months of calm, of slow morning coffee. Of sewing late at night without anyone telling me the machine noise was annoying. Of cooking with all the garlic I wanted. Luna grew. She was no longer that tiny gray ball that fit in my hand. Now she was an elegant cat who claimed the couch like a queen. At least you show appreciation, right, Luna? She purred as an answer. Daniel's payments arrived on time every month. $2,000 in an envelope, always with a short note. Not a single month missed. We had paid $18,000, only $16,000 left. But that Thursday in October, everything changed. I was watering the garden when I heard the doorbell. Luna ran to hide. She still feared strangers. I opened the door. It was Daniel, but not the Daniel from 6 months before, tired and distant. This Daniel looked different, thinner, yes, but with clearer eyes, more awake. "Hi, Mom." Daniel. I stayed in the doorway without inviting him in. "Can we talk?" "Just 5 minutes, I promise." I hesitated, but something in his eyes made me nod. 5 minutes. We sat in the living room. He looked around with nostalgia. "You put everything back the way it was, how it always should have been." He nodded, not arguing. "Mom, I came to tell you something, and I don't want you to think it's out of interest or to look good. I'm listening." He took an envelope from his jacket and placed it on the coffee table. "Here are the $16,000 that were left. All of it. We don't owe you anything anymore." I stared at the envelope without touching it. "Daniel, the agreement was $2,000 a month. Where did you get this?" "I sold my car. It was the right thing to do. I couldn't keep paying little by little something that Sabrina and I owed for months. I needed to close this debt to truly start over." I looked at him with different eyes. This was the son I had raised, the responsible one, the one who owned his mistakes. "Sabrina is working," he continued. "She got a job at a clothing store. She doesn't earn much, but she helps. And I have 2 jobs, part-time engineering, and at night supervising a construction site. We are tired, Mom, very tired, but we are learning." "And Arya?" His face softened at his daughter's name. "She's good, growing, beautiful. She's walking. She says words now. She asks about you sometimes. Points at your pictures and says, 'Grandma.'" I felt my throat tighten. "Do you talk to her about me?" "Of course. We tell her that Grandma Eleanor is a strong woman who taught us to be better. And when she's older, we'll tell her everything, so she can learn." I picked up the envelope. I opened it. Indeed, $16,000 in bills. "You didn't have to rush the payment." "Yes, I did. Because as long as we owed you money, we stayed tied to the mistake. And I needed to close that cycle to ask you something." "What is it?" Daniel took a deep breath. "Permission to visit you once a month. Have a coffee. Talk. Nothing else. Not asking for anything. Not bringing problems. Just reconnect. As mother and son. And Sabrina? She knows she has to earn your trust back. She won't reach out, but she did ask me to tell you something." "What?" "Thank you. Because if you hadn't kicked her out of here, she never would have learned what it means to work for what you have. She never would have grown up. What she felt was cruelty back then, she now sees as the push she needed." I was surprised to hear that. "She really said that? Really?" "She's in therapy too. With a psychologist her boss recommended. She's working on her issues with her mom, learning boundaries, understanding why she did what she did." We fell silent for a moment. Luna peeked from the hallway, evaluating whether Daniel was safe. "That's Luna," I said, pointing at the cat. "She's pretty. Does she keep you company?" "A lot. And she doesn't criticize my dinnerware." Daniel let out a sad laugh. "Mom, I'm sorry. For everything. Not just for the money or leaving you alone. I'm sorry for not seeing you were suffering, for not defending the home I grew up in, for forgetting everything you taught me about respect. You already apologized months ago. I know, but I'm saying it differently now. Now I mean it. Because now I know what it costs to survive, to pay bills, to support a family. And I understand everything you did for me for 30 years. His voice broke. I saw tears in his eyes. "And I understand how much it must have hurt you to see me choose Sabrina over you. Not because a husband shouldn't defend his wife, but because I wasn't defending anyone. I just closed my eyes and let everything happen." I stood up from the couch. Daniel stood too, waiting. I stepped toward him, and I hugged him. I hugged him tightly, like when he was a child having nightmares, like when he graduated college, like when he first introduced me to Sabrina, full of hope. He hugged me back, crying on my shoulder. I love you, Mom. And I love you, son. Always. But now, with boundaries. With boundaries, he repeated. I understand. We are rebuilding. Both with red eyes. You can come once a month. Sundays. At 11. Bring sweet bread and I'll make the coffee. His smile lit up his face. Really? Really? But only you for now. Sabrina and Arya. I need more time. I understand perfectly. And Mom, thank you. Thank you for not giving up on me. He left with a lighter step. I watched him leave through the window. Luna climbed onto the couch next to me. Did you see that, Luna? She purred. I assumed that meant yes. Almost 2 years have passed since that Tuesday, when I found my dinnerware in the trash. 2 years since I said the words that changed everything. Well, you can use them in your new house, because you're not staying here anymore. Today is Sunday, 11 in the morning. Daniel rings the bell right on time. He brings a bag of sweet bread from La Esperanza Bakery. Good morning, Mom. Good morning, son. Come in. We sit in the kitchen. The same kitchen where everything started, but now it smells like fresh coffee and warm conchas. Luna jumps onto Daniel's lap, purring. She has adopted you, I say, smiling. She knows I love her. We talk about everything. His job, he has only one now. Better paid. About Arya. She's 3 and talks nonstop. About Sabrina. She was promoted to manager at her store. After an hour, Daniel looks at me seriously. Mom, there's something I want to ask, and it's okay if you say no. Tell me. Arya turns 3 next month. We're having a small party. At the park. Would you come? Sabrina wants to see you. She wants Arya to really know you, not just in photos. I stay quiet a moment, thinking. These past 2 years I've worked a lot on myself. On healing. On understanding that setting boundaries doesn't make me a bad person. That saying no is an act of self-love. But I've also learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means letting go of the poison so it doesn't kill your soul. I'll go, but only 2 hours. And Sabrina and I will talk alone before the party. Really? Daniel's face brightens. Really, but with clear boundaries. This doesn't mean everything is like before. It means I'm willing to build something new, different, healthier. Mom, you don't know what this means to us. And you don't know what it meant for me to get my life back. Daniel nods. He understands. Finally understands. After he leaves, I stay alone in the kitchen. I take down from the high shelf the box I saved 2 years ago. My cobalt blue dinnerware. The one I rescued from the trash. The one I washed so carefully. The one I thought I'd never use again because it hurt too much. But a few months ago, I did something special with it. I took it to an artisan who works with the Japanese kintsugi technique, that ancient method where they repair broken ceramics, filling the cracks with gold. They don't hide the breaks. They celebrate them. They turn them into art. She repaired every chip, every crack. Now my plates have gold lines that shine in the light. They are more beautiful than before. Because the scars tell their story. I take out a plate, the one Frank dropped so many years ago. Now the chip is sealed with a gold line that looks like a tiny river. I pour myself a coffee. I sit by the window with my blue and gold porcelain plate. Luna jumps into my lap, and I think about everything I lived through, about how I lost myself in silence, about how I got my voice back, about how I almost forgot who Eleanor was just to please others. I look at the garden Frank and I planted. The flowers keep growing. Some dried up and we had to pull them out, but others bloomed stronger. Like me. I see my reflection in the window, 70 years now. Hair completely white, lines on my face that tell stories. But my eyes shine differently. They shine like the gold in my dinnerware. And I want to tell you something. You who have listened to me all this time. If you are living in your own home but feeling like a visitor, if someone is erasing your history because they don't value it, if they say you are dramatic for wanting respect in your own space, listen closely. You are not selfish for setting boundaries. You are not a bad mother, a bad mother-in-law, a bad person for saying this is my limit. True love does not demand that you disappear. It asks you to respect yourself first so you can respect others. I learned that my dinnerware was not just porcelain. It was proof that I existed, that I loved, that my life had value. And when someone threw it in the trash, they didn't just toss plates. They tossed my dignity. But I rescued it, piece by piece. I cleaned it, I repaired it. I made it into something more valuable. And I did the same with myself. I rescued myself from the emotional landfill where I had been thrown. I cleaned off the guilt. I repaired myself with therapy and boundaries. And now I shine differently. Not stronger, just different. With visible scars, with the gold of lessons learned. Because what is broken can become even more beautiful when you decide you deserve to be repaired. I raise my coffee cup. I toast toward the window, toward life, toward myself, for the women who say enough, for those who reclaim their homes. For those who learn that no is a complete sentence, for those who discover that true wealth isn't what you own, but what you refuse to let others take from you. Luna meows. I think she agrees. And I, Eleanor Whitlock, 70 years old, retired accountant, owner of her home and her future. I drink that coffee savoring every sip, because finally, after so long, I came home. To my real home. The one I carry inside. My story comes to an end. If this story touched something in your heart, if it made you reflect on your own boundaries, or if you know someone who needs to hear it, leave me a comment telling me where you're watching from. Did you connect with Eleanor? Have you lived something similar? I would love to read you. And if these life stories of women who find their strength when everything seems lost inspire you, subscribe to the channel Stories of Mom Donna. Here, we share stories that remind us it's never too late to reclaim our dignity. Give it a like if Eleanor taught you that self-love is not selfish. See you in the next story. And remember, your dinnerware, your memories, your life, are not trash to anyone. See you soon on Stories of Mom Donna.